Hey guys, welcome back to SUP'S Garage. On this video, I'm gonna be showing you how to do a valve job on your 2006 to your 2016 Yamaha R6. Now I'm gonna go ahead and put the specs on the bottom of the screen just in case you're needing those right away. I do wanna say on this video, you're not gonna be seeing me remove the fairings off this bike. However, if you click the link on the top right, that video will show you how to remove the fairings off the R6. Then you can come back to this video and continue the process. On some of the gears, removing some of the parts might be a little different as far as the fairings go and maybe some other minor things. But overall, this video should get you all the way down to checking the clearance on your valves and also showing you how to change your shims out if your valves are out of specs. You're gonna see two different bikes on this three-part video only because the first bike, I didn't have enough time to complete the footage on that one. So that's why you're gonna see another bike towards the end of the video. So I just wanna mention that in case you're wondering why there's two different bikes on this same video. But other than that, guys, let's get started. All right, now that we got the fairings off, we're gonna start off on the right side by disconnecting everything in the way to get to that valve cover. All right, so I'm gonna start off with this connection here. You're just gonna push in this tab here and pull back. Then moving on to this black connection here, which is typically connected here, but in this case, this one's already loose. You're just gonna push down on this tab and pull off as well. And for these little white ones, I like to use a screwdriver to make it a lot easier for me. Simply just push down on the tab and then pull off. The fan connection is also usually connected to this plastic piece, but again, in this case, it's already loose. Push down on the clip here and pull off. And also go ahead and disconnect this blue one as well. Push down on the clip and pull off. If you still have the original zip tie holding down the harness, you don't have to cut it, you could actually reuse these. You're just gonna push back on the tab and then push this in and you'll get it released. And if you have this piece here like I do, go ahead and remove that as well. All right, next you're gonna follow your clutch cable, and if you have a zip tie like I do, go ahead and cut that off to get that out of your way. All right, and since we're already on the right side, I'm gonna go ahead and remove the bolt holding down the radiator on this side. All right, now we can start disconnecting everything on the left side. I'm gonna start off by removing this plastic bracket here that's held down by two bolts. All right, next we're gonna be disconnecting the connections. Now, this one here can be a little tricky. You're definitely gonna have to use a screwdriver for this one. I like to put the screwdriver in, tilt it up a little bit, and then pull away. Next, I'm gonna be removing this red one here. Just gonna push on the tab and pull off. Then this one, same thing. Push down on the tab and pull back. Once you got this one disconnected, you can just pull to the left and then just simply pull up. And now we can disconnect the connection for the fan, push down on the tab and pull off. All right, and usually there's a bolt here connected to a bracket, but on this bike, it's already missing. So if you have your bracket still on there, just be sure you remove that bolt that's towards the bottom of the radiator. All right, now I'm gonna disconnect the connection for the stator. As you can see here, here's a clip. You just push in and pull away. Okay, so the only thing holding down the radiator to the bike at this point is gonna be this bolt here. Go ahead and remove it, and then we'll be able to push down on the radiator to get access to that valve cover. All right, so I do want to say it will make this job a lot easier if you do completely remove the radiator out of the way, but I've done this too many times to where I'm able to manage with the radiator in, and I don't want to add extra time by removing the coolant and putting it back in. So like this will work for me. But again, if it's a lot easier for you, go ahead and get that removed. All right, next we're going to be disconnecting the connections that go to the coils. And it's just like all the other connections. You're just going to push down on the tab and pull back, and you're going to do it to all four of them. All right, and once you've disconnected all those connections to the coils, you're gonna disconnect the cam sensor that's located on the top. You're gonna push in that clip and then pull off. All right, now we can continue on by removing all four coils. You're gonna pull up on these. Sometimes these can be a little hard to remove, but a little bit of patience, just twist, twist, pull up. But I do wanna say sometimes that doesn't even help. So what I do, if they're pretty stuck, very carefully and slowly, I like to use needle noses that are angled this way in an L shape. And what I like to do is just put it on the bottom where the connection connects to and slowly pry on it to where it comes out. All right, now we gotta completely remove this little harness because it's not gonna let us remove this valve cover with this here. So the last connection on that is gonna be on the left side of the bike. Just push down on the tab and pull this out. And now we can get this out of the way. All right, now we gotta remove these hoses here that's held down by a clamp on each side. You're just gonna grab onto the clamp and remove the clamp up, just enough to be able to remove the hose off the top of the valve cover. All right, and the last hose you're gonna have to remove is this top one here. Once you got the clamp back, just pull off on the hose. All right, now we can pull this piece off, and then you're just gonna pull this out. As you can see, it's held on this grommet right here, and you might have to tilt back and forth a little bit, but it will come off. Like so. All right, next we're gonna remove the 6 bolts that are holding down the valve cover. And as you can see here, I already have the first 3 in the front removed, as well as the back one in the center, because those are pretty easy to get access to. It's gonna be the back 2 corner ones that are gonna be a little harder. You really don't have much room to put any tool in there. So what I like to use is just the correct Allen bit and a little wrench that will fit the Allen bit. Simply just go ahead and put it on the bolt, and now we could use it to loosen it and remove that back bolt. And you might have to turn it 2 to 3 times to be able to remove the bolt by hand. Once you remove this one, do the same thing on the other side. Now you definitely want to be really careful that you don't accidentally drop this where the spark plug goes, because it's going to be pretty hard to get that out. All right, now at this point, we got everything ready on the bottom side. We're still gonna have to remove the throttle bodies because it's not gonna give you enough space to remove the valve cover. So we're gonna have to remove the gas tank, the airbox, throttle bodies, and then we can remove the valve cover. So time to get started on that. All right, so we're gonna start by removing the seat, and we're gonna have a bolt on each side on the back. You're gonna pull forward on the back of the seat. There's gonna be the bolt there. We're gonna do the same thing on the other side. And at this point, we can remove the seat by pulling up on the rear and removing it. All right, next we gotta remove the covers on both sides, starting off with the screw in the rear. Now to remove these, it's gonna be latching in this area and in this area. So we're just gonna be pushing this forward and it should come off, like so. All right, we're gonna do the same thing on the other side. Mine has a different bolt on this side. And same thing, we're just gonna push forward and it'll pop off. There's gonna be a bolt on both sides of the tank that we gotta remove, and then another bolt on the very front to be able to prop this tank open and disconnect everything on the bottom. All right, now moving on to the other side. Okay, now we can go ahead and remove the bolt that's holding down the front of the gas tank. Like always, I like to use my mallet to hold the gas tanks up while I disconnect everything. Okay, I'm gonna start off by disconnecting these 2 connections here. Just push on the clip and pull back. Same thing for the green one. Now, usually you're gonna have 2 hoses that are connected here, but in my case, the hoses are already missing, so I don't have to worry about those. But if your bike has them, just be sure you put them back where they're supposed to go. I usually mark one of them with a marker just to remember which one goes where. All right, now we're gonna be disconnecting our fuel line. Now remember, just be sure when you disconnect this that you might have a little bit of pressure in there, so just be careful with your eyes and try not to get it on yourself as well. Like most fuel lines, you're gonna have a tab on each side. You're just gonna have to push them in both at the same time. And the easiest way I find it to take it off, you're gonna push in a little bit and then pull out. And just remember, when removing your fuel line, you don't want to put too much pressure in any direction except backwards, because it is plastic and it can break pretty easy. All right, now at this point, you can go ahead and put the gas tank all the way down. The last bolt we got to remove is going to be towards the back. All right, now we can go ahead and completely remove the gas tank. All right, now it's time to remove the airbox, starting off with removing the fuel line that's connected to the top piece. Now this one's gonna have the same tabs like the one on the gas tank. You're just gonna have to push in on both sides, push up a little bit, and pull out. And more than likely, when disconnecting this one, you're gonna have a little bit of fuel coming out. So just keep that in mind. All right, next we're gonna be disconnecting this connection here that connects the fuel injectors that are located inside the airbox. And for this one, it's gonna be simple. There's gonna be a tab right here. You're just gonna lift up on it with the flat screwdriver and you should be able to pull out the connection. All right, now we can go ahead and remove all the screws that are holding down the top of the airbox. And just make sure you use the correct screwdriver, because on these screws, they're really easy to strip and you're gonna waste more time if you're gonna have to drill those out. All right, once you remove all 11 screws, including this one here in the center, you can go ahead and remove the top of the airbox. All right, now starting with the connections for the bottom of the airbox, you're gonna see this wire here that's connected to this piece here. Again, just use your screwdriver, push in the tab and pull it off. Next is gonna be this hose here. Now mine has a different clamp on it, but more than likely the one you'll have, you just need to use some needle nose to remove, but just loosen your clamp and pull the hose off. All right, next to unbolt the bottom of the airbox from the throttle bodies, you're gonna have a total of 6 screws, one there, one back there, the 2 in the center, another one there, and the last one on the corner, just like the other side. Once you've loosened those bolts, you'll be able to lift up the bottom of the airbox off the throttle bodies. And it really doesn't matter which one you start on because they all have to get loosened anyway. All right, now we can pull up on the airbox, and before you pull it off all the way, there's gonna be a hose right here on the right side. Just loosen this clamp and pull it down, and then just simply disconnect the hose from the airbox. And now we can go ahead and remove the rest of the airbox off the bike. All right, and as you can see, we're finally down to the throttle bodies. We're gonna start off by disconnecting this connection here on the top. Just has a tab on the right side. Just gonna push in and pull it off. And this is the second one you'll be disconnecting. That's in the center. That's connected to this piece here. You're just gonna disconnect that by pushing in the tab and pull back. And the next one you're gonna disconnect is the one on the very right. Same thing, you're gonna have a tab that you really can't see, but you should be able to disconnect it. Just gonna push on that tab. So you can see my fingers barely fit in there, and then just pull it off. All right, next, to avoid disconnecting all the electrical stuff connected to the back of the throttle bodies, you just gotta follow the main wire harness here and disconnect it. You're gonna push on the tab and pull off. All right, now in this part, it's gonna be really hard to show, but we're gonna have to loosen the bottom clamps that hold down the throttle bodies to the engine itself. Here's the center one on the right side, and on the very right, you can see the other one there. And as you can see on the left side, on the very left, you're gonna have to loosen that one. And then towards the center of the left, you have that one as well. All right, now we can go ahead and pull up on the throttle body, and I like to use my pry bar, but when doing this, you're gonna have to be very careful. You don't put too much pressure removing that throttle body because you can break it. I'm simply gonna pry on this area here. Again, very slowly, not too much pressure. We go up and down a couple of times, and eventually this throttle body will break loose. And there you have it, it's finally off the engine. I'm simply just gonna pull up on the left side, be able to maneuver it out of the way. Now, if you wanted to go ahead and remove this completely out of the way, you can go ahead and disconnect the throttle cables, but I'm gonna go ahead and leave it there on the side because it's not really gonna be in my way. And like always, before you continue on, after removing the throttle bodies, you wanna make sure that these holes here are covered because you definitely don't wanna drop nothing in there and cause more time to this job. All right, now that we have access to the front and the rear of the valve cover, now we can go ahead and pull up on the valve cover and pull it out from the front. And I do want to say, when pulling the valve cover off, just be real careful that you don't rip the gasket because you can reuse this, but if it gets damaged anywhere on here, you're gonna have to replace that. All right, so before we start the valve adjustment, we gotta make sure that the engine's top dead center. And in order to do that, we're gonna have to remove this cover here. And if these wires are in your way, no big deal. You could just simply tuck these in through the inside of the frame. All right, now we can go ahead and remove the timing cover. And I do recommend putting a container underneath this cover because more than likely there's gonna be a little bit of oil dripping down. Once you got all those bolts removed, we can go ahead and pull off on the cover. And if the pin comes off on the cover like mine did here, just simply pull the pin off and put this back where it goes. All right, so one of the things I forgot to mention is you definitely want to remove the spark plugs because it's going to make it a lot easier when you're turning the engine. All right, in order to get to top dead center, we got to make sure that both lobes for intake and exhaust are facing outward. As you can see, this one's facing that way right now, and the exhaust is actually facing down, which is opening the valve on the exhaust side for this piston. And in order to check any of the specs, you got to make sure that none of the lobes are pushing down on any of the valves that you're currently checking. All right, so we're gonna get this gasket out of the way because there's a line that has to match with this gear here to know that we're at top dead center. And if you wanna reuse yours, just be gentle with it, therefore it doesn't rip or tear, and we could reuse it. And we might have to take a little bit of the old gasket off to be able to see the line that we need to match here on this gear. So if you look in this area here, you can see where the engine casing meets. That's the line we're gonna be using to match with this line here that has the letter T right next to it. And I'm gonna be coloring both of those two lines white to be able to see it a lot easier. All right, now that we have our two lines, we can start rotating the engine clockwise, not counterclockwise, because you risk the chance of damaging something. So you have to make sure you turn clockwise anytime you're checking the valves on this engine. We're just gonna rotate this to where the white marks meet. Just like that. And now we need to check the cams again to see if piston 1 is on top dead center, but we can start checking the valves on that one first. All right, as you can see, our lobes are still not facing the right direction. Again, these have to be facing outward as well as the exhaust side. So in order to do that, we got to come back on the right side, rotate this by 360 degrees back into the line, and we should be good to go. All right, now it's time to recheck the cams once again. All right, and that's how we know we're on top dead center for piston 1. As you can see here, now the lobes are facing outward as well as the exhaust side. All right, guys, and that's gonna be the end for part 1 for this video. If you wanna see part 2, just click here on the next video to see continuing the process. Again, guys, like and subscribe if you like watching videos like this and to show your support. And like always, don't forget, God loves every single one of you guys. God bless you guys, and I'll see you on the next video.